classes. And we just had a bunch of meetings there. Yeah. And the students are definitely using it. And that's what I think really matters. That's what really matters.
Yeah.
Anything that helps the students get to know each other. It's just too easy to be isolated. So, Dean of the Emeritus College.
Yeah.
That sounds intense. I mean, right?
Pretty laid back.
If anyone in higher education is going to know exactly what that is. But,
I have to explain it.
but you could, I mean, you say that with just enough emphasis.
Hi, welcome everyone. You guys have just started. Hi, Bonnie, how are you? It's really nice to see you.
Yeah.
Like last time I saw you, I was on my scooter.
Yeah.
I broke my foot, I was on a lovely scooter for a couple months. It was fantastic. I'm Lucinda Adams, and this is Whitney Heinzmann. She's our Senior Archivist, and I'm the Director here of State Historical Society in Kansas City. I'm not sure how much all of you know about our organization, so I'll just give you a little bit of information about us. We are one of 6 research centers throughout the state of Missouri. Our headquarters is in Columbia at the Center for Missouri Studies. All of our locations are on either MU campuses or other college campuses. We have research centers in Rolla, St. Louis, and Kansas City and Columbia for the MU campuses. And then we also have offices in Cape Girardeau and Springfield. Oh my gosh, it took me a second. And the whole reason when our Board of Trustees decided to expand to our Springfield and Cape Girardeau offices, the main reason is so we could get off of the I-70 corridor, that is Missouri. So a really great feature that we have for our researchers that is very unique is that any of our collections can travel to another research center. So for instance, if we have a Kansas City collection that is collected by Kansas City, housed in Kansas City, archivists in Kansas City work on it. If there is someone in St. Louis that would like to view that collection, we use the University Courier. So our collections could travel to a different research center instead of someone having to drive from St. Louis all the way to Kansas City to take a look at those collections. And vice versa, we get a lot of collections in from our Columbia Research Center for students, faculty, and researchers that are looking for other materials. The mission of the State Historical Society is we collect, preserve, and make available Missouri history. We are a typical manuscript repository archive. We collect letters, diaries, all 2D based material. We don't do a lot of 3D artifacts because we are an archive, so we don't have storage space for artifacts. And as you can see, we don't really have a way to display them either. As you are all aware, we just moved in August. We had about a 2 to 3 year campaign to raise the funds to move into the space, with Bonnie directing our fantastic area and space that we have. But it was a long time coming. We used to be in Newcomb Hall over on the quad on campus, and we had really outgrown our space. We didn't have room for researchers. So this has been a win-win, not just for staff, but our researchers as well. It's also made us a little bit more, really just open our eyes to students. We have so many students coming in now that had no idea that we existed. Some of them may have used LabBuddy for different projects, but now there's another resource for them to use as well. We have students who like to come in here and study, obviously because it's a great space. But we've had quite a few different history students that have come in, English students, and they've just started talking to us about their projects and what can we do to help them. And so I think it's been a win-win for all the parties involved. We'll give you a little tour of our space. Do you want to go to the robot after this, or
Sure.
Where's the robot? If we have time, did you want to?
Have you all seen the robot?
Well, I have, but
I mean, well, yeah.
I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure if I was sure or not. Okay.
You got
Yeah.
it.
There's time, yeah.
So we will. I'll keep on track. We have some display cases over here. So as you can see, when I was talking about artifacts, how we don't really have anywhere to display our artifacts. We do collect small artifacts. this case over here on my left, these are materials from various collections that deal with the Priest of Pallas. And for any of you that are really interested in Kansas City history, the Priest of Pallas is kind of similar to the Veiled Prophet in St. Louis, kind of like Mardi Gras a little bit. And these are just some artifacts that we have from our various collections, some dance cards and programs. Every year all the attendees were given things like the mirrors or a photo frame. There were elaborate floats. One of my favorite things that we have in there are the dance cards, just because I love them. I think they're really neat. And if you watch Bridgerton, you can see them all with their dance cards hanging. But I think it's just a really nice artifact for repositories to have. Over here on my right, these are materials from a recent acquisition. We have the Nellie Dawn papers. And if any of you are familiar with Nellie Dawn, she was a very famous clothing designer. She was pretty much the modern inventor of the women's house dress. I'm gonna let Whitney talk a little bit about, because we also have some materials laid out over here for you, and we have some Nellie Dawn materials, but this is Whitney's favorite collection that we have.
We deal with her a lot. So a little bit about her, businesswoman. She grew up in Parsons, Kansas, made her way to Kansas City, got her degree over in Lindenwood in St. Louis, and she came back here and started her business. And I'll keep it very brief, obviously. It's clothing. She started with her husband, Paul Donnelly. They got divorced. That's part of a whole big scandal. And that's how her last name is Reed. Jim Reed was her attorney. They had an illegitimate child. There's a whole story. There was a kidnapping, yes. So if you ever want to know more about Nellie Dawn, I'd be glad to talk to you about for an extended period of time. But we have a little bit of a smattering. Most of the stuff that's in the case and that's out on the tables is advertisements, and a lot of it's actually after her time with the company. This was her great-grandson, I believe
yes,
it was,
yeah.
that had taken over the company after her. So in this weird intermittent time when it was actually known as Nellie Dawn, that's what this covers, mostly the 1960s.
Question.
Yeah.
Is with the UMCRA, there was a year and a half ago a textile exhibition downtown, and I thought that was from her output. Is that?
It's very possible.
Possible.
There's
Yeah.
It must
like
be-
an uptake
Was that
of
the
things
garment
that are
industry?
related
Yep.
to-
Yeah. The garment district museum
Yep.
has a lot of
Yep.
her clothing.
There was
Yeah.
recently a musical,
Yes.
so things like that.
There's a movie about her.
Yes.
Yeah. Terrence O'Malley.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a really great. That's he's done quite a lot on like various
Yeah.
local Kansas City things. But
Yeah.
he did a great Nellie Dawn. Hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
No, or is that the book? I
That's
can't
the
remember
book.
right now.
That's the book's name. Yeah.
But one of the reasons that we needed new space was to be able to display things like this and to be able to have groups. And one of the things that we love doing is educating people about Kansas City history and showing them some of the materials that we have, and also just even demonstrating to people what is an archives. A lot of people don't understand, well, okay, you're an archivist, what is it that you do? What is in an archives? And so we like being able to show people kind of like what we do for a living, what do we do every day. We'll talk about this stuff in a minute, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of time so you can walk around. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with before the construction began. The name of the department that was here all together was cataloging. Thank you.
Got living history walking
I know all the different names that went through.
So it does look a little bit different. Over here, we call this our reading room. This is where we have our researchers come. We recently built a new building in Columbia, the Center for Missouri Studies, and part of that, since we had state bonds, is that a percentage of the materials needed to be Missouri born and made. And so we decided to go ahead and stick with that when we were designing our space. So things like our tables are Missouri white oak, and so we wanted to make sure that we still played to our heritage being in Missouri, and that we were using Missouri materials. So we could, and then go back to our donors and funders and show them like, yes, we did really stay true to us wanting to use Missouri-made projects. we have, I know that, I have to say this is probably one of the best views in the library. But back here, this is just, it's really great for our researchers when they need to take a break. Come back, look at the view. You can see the Nelson over to the left. You can even see the shuttlecocks out on the lawn. I love
So the chairs actually face the front desk so we can see what people are working on. That's the simple answer for it. The other thing is facing the light after a while, after sitting at the desk, I get kind of heavy on the eyes too, but yes.
We can tell you a little bit about some of the materials that we have out. You want to start with?
Yeah, most of this is the advertising materials from the New Delhi Dawn collection on these two tables. Like I said, most of it advertisements from the 1960s. There are a couple of different things going on with these. There is a little bit more, there's some press releases and things like that. And then there are also some architectural drawings. So something to take into consideration, Kansas City is one of the largest repositories of architectural drawings in the Midwest. We have all of it. So if there's something that you are wanting to rebuild in downtown Kansas City, check us out. We might have something about it. But so we have architectural drawings related to this, and I don't think this is local. I think it's another department store in Santa Monica, in California. So we have all sorts of things, smattering of things across the country that are related to things that are centrally located in Kansas City. We also have things like this beautiful swatch book. So it's got swatches of the patterns and the dresses and the different things that they have manufactured through the years for that. And some of these are just concept ideas too. So we've got a lot of stuff going on with this collection, and a lot of it is very visually stimulating, very nice and colorful. And then obviously the older stuff is in your black and white traditional.
It's hard for an archives, especially for a modern art, to have a lot of color
Yeah.
materials. So
Well,
we're
and
always
mixed materials.
exactly.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
always struggling when we do see things like this.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we need to show people this because this is something that you don't find often. And so how can we display that? Because, you know, when you're doing like displays out front,
Right.
you want to make them visually appealing. And if it's all black and white,
It's hard to draw people in
Yeah.
with that.
Right.
Some of the other interesting things about this new acquisition that we've gotten is you also have paperwork related to annual reports and numbers. So you do have a more administrative company aspect for this collection. It's a very widely covered one. Most of the stuff that came in from this was not personal materials. It really was more company directed, whereas the papers from the previous version were actually personal collections. Then we've just got giant advertisements.
we believe so, yes. We don't have anything definitely saying that, but it's the right size for the tags.
We have a lot of the things where it's instructions on what people in the company were supposed to do, how they were supposed to do their job, ways they were supposed to hang signs and things of that nature as well. So it gives a pretty good wide variety in the garment industry as a whole, but focusing on this one that's holding on.
For your architectural plans, what do you collect exactly? Is it just?
Anything really related to campus, well, commercial buildings, we do have some residential. We have architectural drawings for architects that were in the Kansas City area in Missouri altogether, and did work other places. One of the places I'm thinking specifically was the Bluer Brothers architectural drawings that we have. They did theaters, and a lot of them were like in Oklahoma and Texas. So we do have some that are outside of the general collecting area.
So down here,
Since they relate to
these are just, I wanted to show you some other types of materials that we collect. This is from our Irene Marcus collection. She's about 101 years old, and she's a member of the African American community, and she is kind of the unofficial historian of the Black community. And it started out her just collecting her family's history, and the next thing you know, all these people started bringing her things. Auntie Marcus, here's a picture of my mom and dad from their wedding day. And so basically she collected all over the Kansas City area for the Black history. And these are just some really neat photos. This is one of my favorites. This is Leon Parker, and that is Charlie Parker's. So that's it, and Instagrammer. And then over here, we've got some different jazz musicians. This is Tiny Taylor and Count Basie. Over here, these are two of my favorite pictures that I have found. These are from World War I, and it was the band for from the Kansas City area. It's all black musicians. Over here we have, this is the Budweiser Clydesdales. And so you can just kind of see like how some of these collections that we have things like photographs, but then we also get into some great things like club materials. This was a African American women's club, all the way to when people were running for like Congress. So this is actually this is one of her family members. Her maiden name was Whitley. And so you can see our collections just kind of encompass a lot of different scopes. We don't have a whole lot on General Hospital. We do have some things, but we do have some materials, and there is some stuff in this collection on General Hospital #2 as well. Yep. Robot
has a 2 o'clock meeting, so if we could do the robot maybe, and then we can.
Hey Whitney. The robot, like sure.
And then maybe people can come back after it's done.
If it makes sense, it goes there. Guys ready?
I will be. I'll be following.
It's a prior tour.
Oh, this is like the coolest thing. This is, and there's a sign that says no riders, but I don't believe it. There's no way. There's no way.
No what? No.
No riders.
Maybe we could be the first to have your writers one day.
Well, if you can fit in the box.
Yeah, if you can fit the box.
Which is not you, and it's not me.
But
I thought you meant no writers.
yeah. That'd be a bad sign in a library. No, well, like I've got little kids. They would. You want them to love a library, right? That'll be their memory of libraries.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up. Whitney we call her the queen of the robot. She's
not
going to
my
go a lot
prom
faster than me if you guys want to actually see something move.
So this is our stuff. These are our things. I'll show you how this works. And basically, I'll make sure that it operates before I tell you I can do it.
See this move, and I'm like,
So all of our stuff is on these units. And I mean, it's obviously a very large upgrade for the library and us as a whole. It is just a fantastic piece of equipment. But as you can see along these edges, some of the stuff are in boxes, some of it is in ledger form and stacked. You can get a wide variety of things on there. We can get the 3-foot boxes for architectural drawings on there. Anything that is oversized beyond that does
And the
not.
robot, it brings the whole.
Yeah,
the
and
whole
so
show.
if I could have anybody that's in this weird lane right here, get out of it. Perfect, because I don't want, if it tips, I don't think I can save you.
I bet you're right.
So, if actually, what I'm going to say, if you guys all want to come over here, you can actually see down the robot as it moves.
I've been good. I think I've been lower.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there's
I'll tell you briefly what's going to happen. The yellow crane's going to come, it's going to pick this unit up that's on my left, it's going to pull it, and it's going to take it wherever the empty space is.
Right.
So that's what's going to happen here. So if I could have you actually back up a little bit, because it is going to come right into that empty void. Perfect.
And the computer just remembers where to put everything.
So it's actually, it's random. So wherever the empty spot is, that's where this will go. And then whenever we call the next unit in, that is where it will be empty. So there's not a specific place where the sector actually lives, but the computer remembers and
Only the
correlates.
robot knows where
That's
stuff
right.
is.
They correlates with what's on the unit. So it knows what the unit number is. It knows where the unit is located, but it's not always in the same place.
This is the future, people.
Not
And
know.
lots of room for
I
expansion
don't know, lots of
too.
things have been around.
Is the future is that we know what we have, but we don't know where.
We were the 17th library in North America to install one of
Oh,
these.
that's really early.
And we were the first to do what we call the hybrid system of having one aisle for archival materials and the other 2 aisles for books, which are bins as opposed to
So it's just the weirdest forklift ever.
Yes.
Well, actually, Yuki's talk a couple weeks ago inspired me for some investing options. Not anything specific.
So this isn't obviously gonna go very far. It's probably down on the first floor. So wherever that empty spot is, that's gonna go directly down. It's gonna slide into its home temporarily. And then when we call it back up here, it will come back up here. Or if I'm on this computer, it will come on. So it's a very complicated but easy piece of equipment.
But then you guys have to put everything back so that the next person,
Yes.
you can't leave a mess.
Yes.
A robot will pick up a mess.
Yes. So the whole thing with this is everything is assigned to the unit. So as we put it on there, those barcodes that are on there, you can scan it. If I were to pull something off the shelf, you scan the barcode, it will bring the unit that it's assigned to, which is actually very handy. Because all you have to do is then take the box off and check it out and take it out for your researcher. So there's a lot of room for error in cataloging it, but it's actually very great for pulling it and making it useful to people.
And that way you can keep multiple boxes or items together.
Yes.
Because usually researchers are going beyond one box.
They don't want just the one box, they want multiple boxes.
What are these things that are wrapped?
So those are actually ledgers, and I'll tell you that the ones that are wrapped over there specifically, when we were over in Newcomb, we kept them in the reading room in the cabinets because we didn't have a place to store them. So they're too large to go into a box, so we leave them on the shelf like this because they don't fit in our cabinets over here. So they're readily shelved over here, and they're only wrapped because they were exposed. Basically, the ones that are unwrapped were in larger scrapbook boxes, and when we moved them over from our facility over at Troost, they were taken out of boxes because they're too large to fit on the shelf. So that's just kind of a special case. Some of them are wrapped and some of them aren't. Same with the saran wrap on top. Those are
Oh, yeah,
fragile.
those are fragile.
Those are
sure.
fragile, so they've got that high-tech saran wrap on top of them so they don't flake off.
This is
Well.
like temperature control
Yes.
in here.
Yes, it is. So if we're ever warm, we come back here. It's always a nice, cool temperature.
And drop.
Do you guys have any questions?
So we put this in, I think it became operational in 2011.
Do they make this for attics?
Huh?
For attics.
For addicts.
Attic storage.
Oh.
You know, holiday decorations.
I was thinking of a different
No more having to haul up there, crawl around the
All you have
rafters.
to do
Just,
is buy the robot.
just set it down
Just
and,
buy the
boom,
robot.
gone.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, however many million will take it.
Okay, well, why don't we move on so David can do his
Okay.
magic in digital collaboration.
I have no magic, but I don't even have keys, I don't think, or anything.
Well, I think Sandy can get you in.
No, I think we're gonna put this up
It really does look like,
we're gonna go ahead and start putting some of our
Indiana
materials on.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for coming. Please stop back by when you're finished, or feel free to reach out to us. We would love to talk to you.
It's nice to in one place, you're not
I did lock the front doors in case you.
Okay, thank you. Because I was
Thank
like,
you.
I was like, you know what was wrong?
Thank you.
Did you Did you see Jim Murachek's lecture that he gave here?
No, we just.
We have that online.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did it with
So-
my cell phone the same way as I do it
okay.
now.
So how is Richard? We haven't seen him for a while.
Not that well. Not that well. Dick is not really. He told me he is. He asked Jim to do his lecture then for him because he couldn't do it. At the moment, he's doing a little bit better, but
Yeah, 'cause
Really?
he's by himself.
yeah.
Yeah.
He, in an email, he did not sound very up, unfortunately.
So this gallery space has normally been more about East Special Collections focused, but now that State Historical Society is here, we'll be sharing the space with them. So they'll be putting some exhibits up as well.
Is this the space that you were thinking about too for the
No, I
art?
was thinking either the ground floor or the fourth floor.
Okay.
Third floor. But there are some other spots too. So I wasn't thinking about this
Oh, I totally forgot about a name tag.
I just
Hello.
happened to remember, I was like right there.
Charts and graphs.
Right.
Now it's like, here's your key.
I did
I
forgot
think-
to get it.
There's the key over here.
And I think Jenny
Sorry.
and Jenny's
Hold on.
Right.
I think
I- Well, if they have, they've been thoroughly ignoring me for about 30 minutes, which is not out of the question.
No, I do have a master key, so. Yeah, that's all.
We had this, so I don't know if this is anything of sorts.
Oh.
It just says key
Is that the-
to C. Never mind, it's to the other thing. So it looks like it's, you know, already fully done, but we're still working on some of the, you know, operating kind of functional things. Pandemic has put us behind.
So, this is a little background. For many years, I have been thinking we needed a digital humanities studio or capabilities in the library. So, in the end, we have it. This is it. So it's primarily being used now by the public history folks.
And the
This part of it.
English,
English,
with Jeff, and I'm Sandra Rodriguez, by the way. I'm
And one of our recipients.
Yes, I was the inaugural, one of the inaugural emeritus college scholar awardees. So thank y'all for your for your support. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I can. I'm Jeff Redberg Cox. I'm in the English department classics program. I've been doing various digital humanities things since like 1992. So it's a very, very different world than what it is now. At Tufts, started with a project that was at Tufts. So Bonnie and I, when did we meet?
We actually met
We
first
met
there.
at Tufts. We met elsewhere. Oh, were you? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was with Greg Crane in the basement of Eaton Hall.
Oh, my goodness, yeah,
Yes.
because Bonnie and I, that's how we.
Okay, I did not know that.
Small world.
So mostly what I'm doing now, I've got sort of two projects now that both mostly revolve around art, AI, and artificial intelligence. One is doing things like sentiment analysis, content tracking, topic tracking in literary texts, mostly tuning, revising, refining algorithms that are used for things like Facebook, Twitter, newsfeed aggregation for literary texts. Then we also have a project where we're working with the Champ book that is owned by Buddy. that there's a bunch of stuff, it's a palimpsest so there's a bunch of stuff that's been scraped off and obscured and erased. And so we've been trying to use, we started in 2015 trying to use hyperspectral, multispectral imaging to figure out what's been scraped off and erased. We have now come to the point where we think we're using artificial intelligence and a deep learning algorithm to try and replace the hyperspectral imaging camera with an algorithm. So we're taking a $10,000 to $20,000 system, and hopefully a year from now I'll be able to say you can get a full hyperspectral image from your phone. So I have some of that in there if we want to go look at that. We can talk about what that looks like right now. So right now we take an RGB image from a regular camera and we can get 90% of the hyperspectral data that you would get from an expensive system. So that's what we're working.
What do you call hyperspectrum?
I should know that 380 to 960, I think. So multispectral, if you'd rather call it that.
So a much broader color range.
Much broader color range, and what we're doing is you split out a regular image has 3 data points in red, green, and blue. And so what we're doing is you can then triangulating what the data would be at the other points in the spectrum from those 3 data points, basically. And like I said, so I worked with Jenny Blanton in English, who is the music expert, kind of the medieval expert, who's working with the team in Canada that is really trying to figure out the music and what's underneath. And we're trying to figure out if we can get the data out without having to buy $100,000 multispectral imaging system that we're Sandy, which Sandy I think appreciates, right?
Right.
Yeah, of course.
So that's what I do.
David, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm David Trowbridge. I'm the newest member of the history department. Been here less than 1 year. Came here from Marshall University, but I'm originally from Emporia, Kansas, and went to KU. So this is a homecoming, and we're really grateful to be home. I've been working on digital humanities and public history projects for the last decade. Kind of accidentally stumbled across the big project that I'm doing now, it started as a class project, and the idea was pretty simple. Our phones know where we are. What if librarians ruled the world and they were the ones that made our phones? What would they do? And so we made it to where it connects people to history, and we can do walking tours that, I'm technology agnostic. You hit one button, it turns it into a printable brochure. You hit another button, and you can use your mobile phone. It'll give you an arrow that says, go 60 feet this way, 50 feet, 30 feet. And you can listen to embed. So we're doing a plaza walking tour, and it's going to be narrated by Bill Worley and others. So you can walk through any city and hear the voices, and we can embed oral histories. And it's completely free, and about 500 organizations have used it. So there's now almost 40,000 articles and 1,300 walking tours, and we're doing virtual tours of museums now where you can, well, I did one actually in this space. I just went through, scanned it, made a map, and then we embed little dots. So if this was a museum, we're doing this for the Kansas City Museum, Black Archives, we've done it for the Toy Miniature Museum. So you can actually hear the museum people talking about the artifacts. And then when you go, because if you do the virtual tour, you gotta go. So when you go, you feel like you know the staff and you know a little bit of the collections. So, the idea is, what can technology do to make us more connected?
Sandra, did you get an opportunity to
No,
talk
so,
about your research a little bit?
Yeah, I'll talk about my research and how, if it's okay, how do we kind of envision this space to be utilized?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
I'm Sandra Enriquez. Again, I'm in the history department, where I also direct the public history emphasis. And what my own research, I'm at the very intersections of doing community engaged scholarship. And so this all kind of fits in together with my work. So, you know, my students, as I'm training the next generation of public historians, people that are going to be, working in the public, interpreting history in public, we needed to provide them skills, right? Kind of like with David's project, having them conduct oral histories, learning, the method and the theories and the practices of such things, doing exhibits, doing other digital history work. So in my time here at UMKC, we have done a number of public humanities works, exhibits for example, the 100th anniversary of the Guadalupe Centers in 2019. I have an ongoing oral history project with the Latinx community. And we've also collaborated with other organizations in the Kansas City Metro. So we have helped develop content for the African American Heritage Trail. We have partnered with other organizations in the Metro to create public humanities workshops and kind of symposia rather, like the Quindaro Symposia that happened in 2018. So we do kind of a lot of different work in the history department. But for us, having this space, as Bonnie was mentioning earlier, it was imperative to have a space where our students and the faculty could commingle and utilize it for brainstorming, for working collaborative in projects, and to have these ideas brainstorm. We, usually the usual suspects in subjects, I'm sure, as you will know, we kind of commingle with, the humanities because we're, or with English because we're in the same building, right? We do the same type of work, but we hope that through this space that we can bring together people that wouldn't necessarily come together and think about ideas, right? And bring our students along the way. And hopefully, yes, we kind of make this initiative more robust. That we could also bring in more collaborative efforts with community members. And so that's one aspect. So bring people together, have it as a hub, and kind of be the space where all these amazing projects are already taking place across campus, where they can be incubated and whatnot. And then also the second part of it is, to provide the tools and the technology that is needed to carry out these projects, right? So as Jeff was mentioning, provide scanning and digitizing technologies. We have a recording studio that I'd be happy to take you along for oral histories. For if students want to record podcasts, if they want to record themselves giving a presentation, we have those tools for them available because they are expensive and sometimes they're inaccessible for a few of our students. So that's all I have to say for right now.
Did you by any chance see 60 Minutes last night?
I did not.
It was about digitalization, 3D digitalization and databasing on Holocaust survivors. So they basically can interview personally people that have already deceased and are at the moment, depending on your question, they bring basically 5 or 6 days of full day recordings in blocks. They have them in the database, and so you have the person respond to you personally to the type of question you ask and what you ask.
And so, can I ask which project is that? Is that the Survivors of the Shoah project that Steven
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So one of the interesting things where we talk about these are tools, but these are tools that we shape, and we're all, of course, academics, and so we're used to thinking research is important. Some people need that explained to them. When I was had one of my first big grants in 2003, 4, 5, sometime longer ago than I probably care to think about. That group had also gotten funded by NSF in the Digital Libraries Initiative. And so I remember meeting with that, I wasn't involved in any way with their work other than we're at the same directors meetings. But to think about the ways that when we talk about funding research and what research means in these fields, that
it was
basic research.
If you missed it, please go back. It's extremely impressive.
Yeah, that project is very
It brings
impressive,
history
for sure.
alive.
Yes.
Right, and it's so important to
Interviewing people that are dead.
Right. But
That's basically what they did.
But pushing the boundaries of what we know
Yeah.
how to do, it's stuff that I think lots of people look at and think, oh, well, you're just taking a tool and using it, but instead, really, there's the technology to run those sorts of interviews for things like that, as opposed to helping you navigate a phone tree to track your package, are fundamentally different. And so if that stuff isn't done, then it doesn't happen, and that's the sort of stuff that we also we hope to do and work on in our
One
projects.
little piece of background stuff, and then I'm gonna let people go crazy. But one of the reasons we have this space on this floor and brought the State Historical Society in here was to have all these primary resource materials all in one space, so the researchers, whether they're students or faculty or community, and come in one location, be able to get to the materials that we have here on campus, and then use them and incorporate them into their research using all these technologies, which will undoubtedly change rapidly over time.
So I'm gonna jump off of what Bonnie said. I'll introduce myself. I'm Senior Rodriguez. I'm the Associate Dean for Special Collections and Archives. And speaking of primary sources, one thing I want to emphasize is, so my background is actually with digital collections, repositories, archives, discovery is really important, and preservation. So the libraries, we're a partner. We saw this space as being a really great central space to bring people together, not only because of the access to materials, but also access to expertise that we have related to metadata and long-term preservation. And then just, yeah, the amazing collections that we do have here. And we've done a lot of work with digital exhibits in particular. So we're starting to do some planning in terms of resourcing our partnership. So we just hired our head of digital projects.
Oh, yeah.
She started in November, and one of the things that she's doing is building this program of consultation services, making sure that people are aware, faculty and students are aware of the expertise that we have that can help them. But part of her time is really focused on, we're starting with digital exhibits, and we're going to hopefully build out from there, because we know that's something that we've been doing and something we can jump off of. But the other thing is for this space to have more like a full-time, some full-time staff. Right now we have graduate students are great, and I think we'll always have graduate students working in this space. So that's a really great opportunity for them. But we also want to make sure that we are able to conduct workshops together to provide those skills to students and community members. So Sandra mentioned that, you know, where we're really starting right now is focusing on our students and supporting our students and faculty, but the idea is to be able to staff this space properly, open it up more to community engaged scholarship and projects. We want to show you some of these rooms. I'll just briefly say you can walk around. Sandra already mentioned the recording studio. We have a production room here. We have a brand new book eye scanner. And for those who are more advanced with recording and editing, there's a whole audio station or audio video station set up here. We also have 2 small collaboration rooms for folks who are working on a specific project together. And obviously this open space, the furniture is movable. There's monitors throughout. There's a feature if faculty, for instance, reserve the entire space to teach a class. They can take control of the monitors and demo something and then let the students go and work on the projects. And then the other thing that we have, which we'll be going into shortly, is this seminar room, with, you know, we got the max capacity, like 12 people or something.
I think 12, but.
So smaller groups, but it is available for folks to reserve, as are the small collaboration rooms. And again, doing some, it's not available for a regular class, but an instructor can check the room out for a particular session if they want to. And we've done some hybrid sessions. The first time we did it, we tested it out, it was a little wonky, but we weren't quite prepared for it, but I think it's been pretty successful.
I've done, what have we done, 3 meetings now that are basically 50-50. Where people were given the choice of attending in person or remotely, and we're 50-50 in there, and it worked very well. And can I chime in one other thing?
Yeah.
And I don't know who to compliment. I think it's both of you, Sandy and Bonnie. But when we designed this space, one of the things that I think nobody wanted was a locked, dark room most of the time. So library policy says that this space, if it's not reserved for a class, any student can come in, any student can reserve a room, any student can come in and use it. And so I was a little, I know it's spring break, but this is the first time I've seen it empty.
Empty, yeah.
Since it opened. I mean, so this space is well used.
It's actually not even open.
It's not even
empty.
Well, a student who reserved it is using one of those rooms, that's right. But that idea that, okay, so that it's available for a student, a faculty or a student, like a student study group could reserve that whole room, right, and reserve it for a meeting. But when the library's open, it's not like dead, when the library's open and it's not reserved, it's not dead space. And so students can come in and plug into these monitors and work on a project that has nothing to do with any of us. And so I mean, of course it's wonderful space, of course the students flock to it. But I think that's one of the better things that, from my little faculty lens, I wouldn't have thought of, but that, in the library's design of this space has been, every time you come in, there's a fun energy in here, whether, it's not, and you're working or doing your thing, and there's a million people around doing their thing, and it's great, it's got a great energy to it.
We know from working in like archives, when people can look into your space, but you're only open certain hours for good reason, right? We have materials that, we have security practices around, but we only staff it so often, but they see this nice, like the State Historical Society, this really beautiful reading room space, and they're like, oh, I can't go in there, and it's the evening time. So this space is really designed to make sure, like, oh yeah, they're gonna come in and we're gonna flex the space as much as possible. It happens to be designed to really support digital humanities, but it really supports any of that work. So we try to make it as accessible as possible.
And where I first realized the impact of that, there was a group of, I will say they're 6-year medical students. They were in some sort of science program, and they had boards in there. They had their YouTube video of their lectures on the screen in the wall. There were a dozen of them cramming, working on something, but using that space in the ways that it was intended to be used. So it's great. It's a great piece. It's all accessible. Any student can walk in with their SSO, log into that computer, use all the equipment. Any student can bring their laptop, plug in, and use this if they're working on it with 2 or 3 or 4 people, pull over chairs for their group, run these without needing, sort of a specific project.
So Stuart, I was thinking about the medical humanities program and how that could possibly benefit from this space as well. So
The Edgar Snow reading room in this floor.
Edgar Snow Stop is in the papers. They're just right next door.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, it's got ramifications across the whole university.
So if you want to take some time to just kind of explore, look into the various rooms. I know Jeff's going to be in the seminar room.
Only because I put up some of the pictures of the hyperspectral imagery. So
Okay, yeah.
I'll be in here. The small collaboration rooms, I think are pretty self-evident.
I thought that was you behind the mask. So back to what did you call yours? Computing and technology, teaching with technology roundtable. What I got here.
Yeah, that was way back when.
That was way back when, right? That's speaking of more years ago than we care to remember. But you were doing all this when you were already doing all this when we got here.
I came along 50 years too early. I wish I were here first.
Right. This is spectacular. This space is really.
In 50 years' time, you'll say the same thing.
Yeah, you'll say, gee, I wish.
Right. I will say the same thing for sure. Yes.
From that side.
Well, this is wonderful.
Yeah, no, and just the view, I mean, it takes advantage of the best view on campus, I think.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the State Historical Society said too. They had the best view too.
Well, it's the same size.
It's the same view.
Yeah, it's the same view. And this was all locked up behind like service space, right?
Yeah.
Like, which was, good, but this is, to have the students be able to use it.
Where are the geeks?
What department are you in?
Engineering.
Engineering, okay. So I've got to pull out my.
Don't worry.
Well, let's see.
So yeah, he's been collaborating with Jim Blanton and Nathan.
Euler.
Huh?
Euler.
Thank you.
That's arranged.
And Reza and
because a lot of what they're
direction.
so Nathan does the chemical analysis.
Yes, exactly.
Of it
and then Julie and Yugi Lee and computer science
And
here.
Yugi just gave a seminar. to
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
A
Oh,
couple weeks
okay,
ago.
right, okay, what was her seminar? Was hers on the smart
Big
cities?
data.
Big data, okay. And so Yugi and Zhu are co-PIs on the grant that's funding this.
Oh, wow.
So this is, you know, so if you go back, it's a little, this is in progress. So so these are the pages that we've scanned, that we've just taken. This is the standard RGB image, and then you can select from a series of any two arbitrary
Wavelengths.
wavelengths, and interpolated wavelengths. So not true. This is interpolated data, not true hyperspectral data. And then you can do comparisons, you know, sliders back and forth. So we have to, A makes the target for the tumor. And so you can look at it under some of the, under the different, kind of do some comparison. Then the next thing.
What does it show you then?
Well, what the trick of what I'm showing you here is that when you're seeing stuff, you can start to see letters. Like so, on a different page, there's a chant that's scraped off, and then if you
And you see shadows.
Oh.
you can find the letters.
Oh.
But the trick is that that hyperspectral or multispectral images don't by themselves show you a ton. Where you get where you can see the hidden text.
It's specific frequencies, right?
It's specific frequencies, and what you end up doing is dividing the two images and taking the difference between the two. So what you're trying to do is increase the contrast between, so that some of the data has been captured in one of the layers, it's been in a certain frequency, and you get, so what you're trying to do is either increase the contrast or get rid of everything else. And so that's, so what the next step, and this is month 14 of a 36-month project. So the next step is to then process some of these images so that you have those layers that show you the differences, that show you where you can actually find stuff. And then you can have those inspections. And so you're doing image division, you're doing layers of subtraction, and then you're also doing false color, where you take three different wavelengths and put them in the red, green, and blue channel, and it makes things sort of glow. And so this is the interactive exploration piece of it, and some of the data is coming underneath. The way the pieces of the puzzle are all falling together is we've got the interpolated hyperspectral data. I have another student who's written a program that you can do all these image manipulations in ImageJ, which is an NIH program for doing image manipulation. But so we pulled some, but you can also implement them all in Python and OpenCV and various. And so he's pulling them out so we can build recipes without making you learn all of ImageJ. So you can load in a stack of images and then output we know that basically dividing something in the 600s by something in the 400s tends to show, that's one thing that will often reveal data. And so to automate that, have a recipe so that someone could theoretically come in, grab this stuff, run it through, use that program, and do their own interpretations. The third bottleneck is that it's computationally expensive. So when I was at Tufts, now old, 2000, when I was at Tufts, a long time ago, we were applying for supercomputing power to process text. You can process text with anything, right? This, you need GPUs again.
Sure.
So the School of Computing and Engineering just put in a GPU cluster, because to do one of the, right now these images are really low, are downsampled to a really low resolution. And so when you start going in and doing the subtraction, it's fuzzy. You can see the stuff, but it's fuzzy. Yeah. And so what we've got a student doing now is tiling the images so you can process them in patches and restitching them. On his computer, which has a single core GPU, doing this takes an hour-ish. Mm-hmm. And so we're getting ready to put it on. The School of Computing and Engineering just bought a GPU cluster. So we're getting ready to transition it over to, hopefully we can process bigger images. And then if I'm dreaming big, we just did a major research instrumentation proposal to NSF where they put in, I don't even know the specs of the GPU, $500,000, some, very expensive high GPU processing machine. And then we asked for $100,000 for a archival, FADG compliant imaging system, the sort of thing they would use like at the Nelson to do the stuff where you can put a painting on it and then do this super high zoom in resolution. So
What do you mean that when you say low resolution versus high resolution?
So
What-
this is a 16 megapixel image. To process it in Google Colab, which is what we do with it, we downsample it to, they come out at about 160 to 180 megabytes.
Okay.
So that's, and when we can keep that original, 16 megabyte file by tiling it. So we tile it down to 500 by 500 and then run them through. And one of the things we found though is when you tile it, the model learns what it should be, but where you have a lot of black around the outside, the model's not as good. There's not enough variation for it to interpolate the data. So when you do the tiling, you end up seeing a bunch of little
spots.
Your screen that I know what to
Yep.
do with here, right? If I
Yeah. It's a touch screen.
right, so I could do this, you end up with like blocks like here where you can see that the edge block is different. The rest of it looks uniform, but the edge blocks don't look the same.
So what's special about the Adair chant book?
The Adair chant book.
I mean, why are you using that as your?
Because we have it here.
Okay,
No, that's
number one.
That is number one reason. It is here. It is material that is amenable to this sort of analysis. It was owned. I'm way out of my league here, but it was owned by a monastery in Spain. Then it was transferred to I think Jenny's gonna kill me, but a second monastic house and then a convent. And in each of those cases, it was corrected, changed, overwritten, and at various times to simplify. There was stuff entered specifically for specific houses.
So there is a basis to say there is material taken away.
There is material here, yeah. I should have brought up, I've got a PowerPoint, I'm not sure. I can pull it up if I won't make you watch me fumble for it, but where we actually have a page and there's a chant on a page that was scraped off that we've done this hand manipulation on and recovered.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that's interesting is that there is in one of the pages, in the margin, there's a note that says D. Strozzi. So Strozzi is a family of composer. There's a composer. There's a lot of Strozzis, and so to know where that came from, and I shouldn't really say because I don't know, but there's a whole team of people that are basically working on what that. So some, basically.
But this isn't a book that's being studied around the world.
It will be.
No, it is. So this.
Well, because of what you're doing.
Well, this field of chant, there are musicologists around the world who study this, and so our music group, the book history group, is working with a group that's in Canada called Cantus, and they catalog these global, and so all of the data that we're gathering, all of the chants will end up in this global database, so that then. So there are people who study this. This one is, and one of the challenges of doing this is then just discovery. Oh, it's not open yet. So there'll be a link to that Cantus database down there.
That's why.
Right, that's why. And one of the challenges for people who study this is just figuring out where they are. Because like ours is here fairly randomly, and alum bought it in Spain and donated it to our library. So some of it is just.
I think we've got 2 chant books. I mean, it isn't like a major collecting thing that we do.
Right.
But we have them.
Right. And so, there's this group, and what they do is they catalog these chant books that are in libraries. And Jenny's working on the second one now, adding its chants to this database.
But yeah, the musicologists and conservatory have used this a lot in their classes, even before this project started.
Right.
So what they're doing is just really opening it up to the world.
And I remember Crable. What's her first name? Janet. Who's the organist who plays at the Kaufman? And Crable is her last name.
I don't know her first name.
But she did her DMA out of this book and perform. So the library before we came to it has a website with performances of some of the chants. So it's been, but it opens.
Andrew Bernal, he's used this a lot for.
Right.
And actually, I think the recording that Linda Voigt's played at when we were over at the Nelsons in that collection, I don't think you were there that day.
Of the manuscript.
Yeah, that, you can see his face. He's a retired.
Everett.
Everett, yeah, Bill Everett.
Bill Everett.
Had some of his students recorded playing from this chamber.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
Right. And then where this swirls out is that Linda Hall has all sorts of stuff. So as part of this, if we're in month 14 of the grant funding for this, at the tail end, we've got the RGB images of their Sidereus Nuncius, which has handwritten corrections by Galileo.
Shoot.
And so and again, so it's one of those things that would they let us
Can we touch it? Yeah.
Well, they might let us touch it, but would they let us traipse it over here and
Right.
stick it in our multispectral imaging system? Maybe if you had a. But what this lets you do
Sign your
is
life away, yeah.
right. But so instead of trying to convince someone who owns a priceless object to try and unite in the same physical space the priceless object
Right, if you can use
and
your
the
cell phone
$100,000
to get
right.
the data.
Or grab, like what we're doing, the test case for us, the hypothesis that we're testing is that we can take their image that they took for their archive online not having this purpose in mind and generate hyperspectral data that can be used to do preliminary exploration. So we're asking them, so we're using their image and saying, we don't want you to have done anything special with the light. We don't want you to have done anything different than just taking a picture the way that you would take it as a premier global collection in the history of science and see what we can get out of it.
For mystery houses too, where people take standard RGB pictures and find out where the ghosts are.
Do they show? I don't know enough about that technology. They show up. What frequency do they, or what parts of the spectrum? Do they show up in?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so sure, why not? One thing that's interesting is we tune this data. There's a data set that for doing this work, this interpolation work, that's not book based. It's just stuff that they image, a mouse that they put into hyperspectral imaging, and we trained our model off of that data. And it's not very good. So we retrained it. There's some existing hyperspectral data sets from a manuscript gospel at the Cathedral at Whitfield that we used as our training set. So we had to retrain in order to get good results. So to get what I'm trying to say is to find ghosts, you're gonna need 1,000 good pictures with ghosts so that you can train it. Right. On that side of data, so that the model identifies them.
There are lots of pictures people say there are ghosts on there.
Right. You have to, we just have to retrain the model. Right. Like our model won't do it off the shelf.
Okay. Thank you.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, and you're seeing this beautiful space, right? So then theoretically, back to the space thing, right? You've got that camera can capture anyone that moves and tries to identify the speaker who's sitting, moves around. Wired, you don't have to, you can speak normally. The biggest challenge is, like, so if you speak normally, Zoom picks it up, and as long as you adjust the volume right, if you don't adjust, when you first start, you either can't hear the person at all, or they're like booming through the room. But this room is, I don't even know, well beyond anything I have any expertise in, but well designed. Like you can have a normal conversation like this, and we could have 5 people on Zoom. And we could be talking like this, and everyone could participate.
I think they use this as a pilot to understanding how to design classrooms that have
that have this high flex, And so so it is trivial at this point now. Trivial to have a meaningfully.
Of course, that was being designed before the pandemic.
Right.
So I'm sure they actually used that.
I'm sure by now, And it's trivial to have a meaningfully good hybrid meeting. You can just
wonderful. Because there's not a lot of good hybrid space.
Right.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge is that I'm talking to you and I've got the screen behind me, and so I don't see it's hard to get, it's learning new social interactions so that you get everyone in.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's easy to just fall into talking to this
Some of
group.
us retired at the right time.
Yeah. When did you retire?
17.
17, okay, so you got exactly the right time. And so what kind of engineering or what?
Civil.
Civil, okay.
Civil water.
We have a piece of, right, it's still not quite ready though. We're missing like a behind the scenes thing.
Wow.
But it's,
Cool.
I know.
It's just so
Closer.
exciting to see this.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, when we, we had an open house for students and they were so excited about the possibilities that they could do here. And, some of our musicians were like, can I come and record myself? And I was like, no, not in the library, sorry. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we could develop like a night, once a month or a quarter or something, but.
Does this have, acoustic? Yeah.
Kinda.
Good acoustics?
So,
How to say that?
yeah, so we have those like blocks there that are supposed to
Oh,
be
yeah.
the acoustics, but other than that, no. So that is part of the reason why.
Yeah. Music needs a little bit more than that.
Right, we need
Yeah.
a more rudimentary.
Megan's office is, the head of digital projects is adjacent to this. So she's
I
like,
am
"It's
sure-
not really soundproof."
Right.
Yeah.
In the visible spectrum
Yeah.
that accurately reflect what
I need to
is.
run that.
Oh, yeah, we're over time.
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we get really excited talking about
Yeah.
this space.
Of course.
Well, it is to see you.
Yeah, no, it is, and just to see it, see it come together and
To see the
see
students get excited, yeah, that's just so exciting.
Okay.
To see the students use it.
I'm going to close this one off too then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.